when stability became the biggest risk. For years, everything worked exactly as it was supposed to. Systems ran smoothly. Customers stayed loyal. Profits arrived on schedule. From the outside, the business looked untouchable. Inside, it felt safe, predictable, complete, and that was the problem. Stability is comforting, but it can also be deceptive. It convinces organizations that what works today will work tomorrow. It rewards consistency over curiosity. And slowly, almost invisibly, it turns success into a ceiling. By the time anyone notices, the risk isn't change. It's staying exactly the same. To understand how stability became dangerous, we need to return to the moment the warning signs first appeared, not as failures, but as absences. Fewer bold ideas in meetings, fewer questions asked, fewer experiments launched. Innovation hadn't stopped. It had become cautious, safe, optimized for protection instead of discovery. The company had perfected its operations. Every process was documented, every outcome measurable, every deviation corrected. And for a long time, that precision paid off. But markets don't stand still. Customers don't freeze in place. And while the company refined what already existed, the world outside began shifting in quieter, faster ways. New behaviors emerged. New tools appeared. New expectations formed. None of them dramatic enough to cause alarm. But together, they signaled a change in how value was being created and how quickly it could be taken away. Inside leadership circles, the discomfort grew. Reports showed stability everywhere, except in growth. Expansion slowed. Adoption plateaued. The company wasn't losing ground, but it wasn't gaining any either. Competitors experimented recklessly. Startups moved faster. And for the first time in years, the future felt uncertain not because of threats, but because of comfort. This is where the reveal begins. Because the greatest risk the company faced wasn't disruption from outside. It was the internal belief that stability itself was proof of safety. And once that belief took hold, the very systems designed to protect success began quietly working against it. The early signals were subtle, almost polite. A new competitor gaining attention among a niche audience. A startup introducing a feature that felt unnecessary at first glance. Customers asking questions that didn't quite fit the existing roadmap. None of it looked urgent. None of it demanded immediate action. The reveal deepened. Inside the company, stability had become a filter. Ideas were evaluated by how well they fit established processes. Experiments were measured against existing benchmarks. Anything that threatened efficiency was quietly deprioritized. The system rewarded predictability, not exploration. And over time, curiosity became a liability instead of an asset. The market, meanwhile, continued evolving. Customers began expecting faster iteration, more personalization, greater flexibility. Competitors responded by testing aggressively, learning quickly, and adjusting in public. The company watched from a distance, confident in its scale and reputation. After all, stability had protected them for years. Why abandon it now? But the data began telling a different story. Usage metrics flattened. Engagement patterns shifted. The most advanced users explored alternatives while still paying for product, a dangerous form of quiet dissatisfaction. Support teams noticed an increase in feature requests that challenged core assumptions. Yet each signal, taken alone, seemed manageable. Together, they formed a warning the system wasn't designed to hear. Tension surfaced internally. Some teams pushed for controlled experimentation, arguing that stability, without learning, would eventually collapse. Others resisted, pointing to risk, cost, and the danger of disrupting loyal customers. Leadership found itself balancing two fears: the fear of breaking what worked, and the fear of being left behind by what was coming. The conflict sharpened when a small pilot project, approved almost reluctantly, produced unexpected results. A limited group of users responded with enthusiasm. Engagement spiked. New use cases emerged. But the pilot also revealed something uncomfortable. The existing infrastructure struggled to support the new behavior. The experiment worked. The system didn't. And that contradiction forced the company to confront a truth it had avoided for years. Stability had not prepared them for adaptation. It had optimized them for maintenance. And in a world where value shifted faster than systems could adjust, maintenance was no longer enough. The warning was clear. Stability wasn't protecting the company anymore. It was slowing them down. And the longer they waited, the harder it would be to change without breaking everything. The realization changed the tone of every conversation. Stability was no longer neutral. It was now a force working against them. The pilot had proven that users were ready for something different. But it also exposed how brittle the existing system had become beneath years of optimization. The conflict escalated quickly. Engineers warned that expanding the pilot would stress infrastructure never designed for adaptability. Product leaders worried that accelerating change would confuse customers accustomed to consistency. Operations teams feared losing the reliability that defined the company's reputation. And leadership, caught between preservation and progress, faced a dilemma with no comfortable answer. The emotional peak began to form when the pilot was scaled slightly wider. At first, everything held. Then small cracks appeared. Response times lagged. Data synchronization slipped. Edge cases multiplied. The system wasn't failing catastrophically. It was failing selectively, unpredictably, in exactly the ways that erode trust over time. The more users leaned into the new behavior, the more resistance they encountered from the old architecture. And that resistance carried a message. The company had built a machine optimized for repetition, not evolution. Each layer of stability, each safeguard, each approval gate, each rigid workflow had reduced variance so effectively that adaptation itself became friction. The very systems designed to prevent failure were now guaranteeing it. Tension reached a breaking point during a critical review. Forecasts showed that even modest growth in the new behavior would overwhelm capacity within months. The math was unforgiving. Either the company rebuilt its foundation to support change, or accepted a slow decline masked by temporary stability. There was no incremental fix, no safe middle path. This was the moment where comfort ended. Rebuilding meant dismantling processes that had delivered success for years. It meant accepting short-term instability in exchange for long-term relevance. It meant admitting that the systems everyone trusted were no longer fit for the future they were entering. Silence followed the conclusion, not because the decision was unclear, but because everyone understood the cost. Stability had given them time. Now it was taking it away. And unless they acted, the greatest risk they faced wouldn't be disruption from outside. It would be the quiet decay of a company that stayed perfectly stable until it no longer mattered. They chose to disrupt themselves. Not all at once, and not without fear, but with a clarity shaped by evidence they could no longer deny. Stability had carried them far, but it also locked them into patterns the future refused to follow. If they wanted to remain relevant, they had to rebuild the very systems that once defined their success. The transformation began beneath the surface. Rigid workflows were loosened, approval chains shortened, infrastructure redesigned to respond instead of resist. Teams shifted from protecting outcomes to exploring possibilities. It was uncomfortable. Progress slowed before it sped up. Failures became visible. But learning returned, and with it momentum. The system changed. As the new foundation took hold, the product began to adapt alongside its users. Features evolved organically. Feedback loops shortened. Innovation stopped waiting for permission. The company regained something it hadn't realized it lost: responsiveness. This was the climax. While competitors continued optimizing for efficiency, this company rebuilt for resilience. When market expectations shifted decisively, they didn't scramble to catch up. They were already aligned. Stability was no longer their anchor. It was their launch point. In the resolution, the lesson was unmistakable. Stability is not the enemy, but mistaking it for safety is. In a world defined by constant change, the most dangerous posture is standing still and calling it strength. The companies that endure aren't the ones that avoid disruption. They're the ones willing to create it, especially when everything still seems fine. Because by the time instability becomes obvious, it's already too late. Subscribe to join the journey. When